Hey, ladies and gentlemen, hope everyone is having a fantastic holiday so far, given the circumstances. But hey, we're at the end. We're at the end of it. So, with that being said, guys, here I am doing one of these videos talking about movies. And they typically call those movie reviews. And considering I had a lot to decompress with this film. I figured to let me stow on it for a little bit, and here I am to finally talk about Wonder Woman 84, Wonder Woman 1984, WW84, however you want to pronounce it. Whatever the case may be, here we are talking about Miss Princess Diana. So if you're not typically familiar how I do my reviews, and this is my live review, which I don't do many, but figured I'd do a live review for this one because I definitely would like to see some feedback about this one. But if you're not familiar how I do my reviews, I do my stuff that I like about it, stuff that I don't like about it, and I will try to keep some spoiler talk light, but I will let you know when spoilers kick in. So that way, if you haven't seen the movie yet, or if you don't care, hey, I said my piece. I warned you ahead of time. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into what I liked about Wonder Woman 84. First off, I think the aesthetic that they got for the movie, I think, worked really well. It definitely looked like it was in the 1980s. Um, Aside from that, I think some of the action scenes were pretty decent for the most part. I didn't have like too much issue with the action. I think for when it worked, it worked. Any other time, it was just kind of like, okay, okay, fun ride, whatever. I have to say that my favorite part of this film was probably the beginning of the movie, where they show young Diana participating in the I guess the Themysciran, is that a word, Themysciran? But basically, they were doing the Amazon games on Themyscira, and we see young Diana participating, and there was supposed to be, I guess it was supposed to be like a theme that was supposed to set the tone for the rest of the movie, and I think that beginning part does a good job setting that up. And to me, it's easily the best thing about the movie. With the part with young Diana competing in it. So I thought that was cool. Other than that, I mean, Gal Gadot looked okay. I'm just, um, guys, that's kind of a really short list about things that I liked about the film. It's really not a whole lot I can say that was good aside from some of the aesthetic, some of the action that was being used, CG in some places. Uh, that well, okay, I will say this: Pedro Pascal actually did a pretty good acting job in this film. I wasn't really worried about him. Um, there are some things that I will speak about in the next part that concern him and some other characters. But Pedro committed to the role, so like I give him props for that. Kristen Wiig wasn't bad in the film either. Um, but again, it's some things that I'm going to get into towards the bad section, which we will go to now because I really don't have anything else to really say about uh, positives. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the negatives now. Okay. Gosh, where do I begin? I'm not sure what happened with the development of this film because obviously I can't help but contrast it to the first film, which was easily the better movie. I think when it comes to this one, pacing of this movie I feel was very atrocious.
Marvelous!
Uh, Appreciate the like. I didn't. Andre, thank you very much for liking the stream. Appreciate it. Um, but yes, pacing in this movie was bad. It starts off with like a kind of a you know basically Diana stopping a robbery at the beginning of the film. Like you see a good portion of that in the trailers. It starts off being kind of like lighthearted and whimsical and stuff like that, and it's like, okay. I mean, it's all right. It's fine. I mean, it's entertaining. But it's like after that, the movie just goes completely slow, and it essentially for the better part of the film up to probably like an hour is just nothing but exposition and jumping from one plot point to the next. And of course they go through all the beats with uh Diana working at the Smithsonian. I forget exactly what her title there, whatever, but she's working at the Smithsonian, and they introduce Barbara Minerva, who eventually becomes Cheetah, and it's look. I'm at this point where I'm really tired of seeing this trope, and I'm sure if you watched any other reviews or anything like that or whatever, we've seen this trope thousands of times. And I don't even remember the last time I've necessarily seen this trope being used and it was really effective. But I get it was supposed to be the 80s and all of that, but just sometimes when certain things in the film doesn't work, it just doesn't work. It's no way of getting around it. So Barbara's just like, she's kind of like, you know, I guess thrifty or whatever, and it's like everybody kind of ignores her because she's very unassuming or whatever, wears glasses or whatever, and then all it's the same thing they did in Batman Forever, Iron Man 3, Batman Returns, and so on and so forth. It's at this point it's just like, okay, enough with this trope already. It's and that's kind of another thing too. They really were very hammy in this film. I don't know if it's because they were really driving home the 80s aesthetic or whatever, but it was like, okay, this is getting to the point where now it's getting really corny. And I don't I get what they were trying to do, but to me it didn't work. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. And again, I tried to go into this like loving it, but like it just didn't work for me all that much. A lot of how things just pop off. Like Pedro Pascal, like his character's motivation to me was very. I mean, it's very dime a dozen. Like it really wasn't anything unique about him. Barbara's motivation, eh. I mean, we understood what Diana's motivation was, but again, because like they stretched it out so long, it got to the point where it was just boring. And my fiance was watching with me. She fell asleep on it. She does not fall asleep on films unless she's like dog tired, and she wasn't, and she fell asleep watching this with me. And that's kind of telling for me personally, but it's just the narrative wasn't told very well. It's like you understood what was going on, but at the same time, they just elongated it so much to the point where it was like, okay, could we kind of hurry up and get to the point now? That's essentially what was going on. And other than that, um, the explanations to certain people, well, obviously they explain how Steve Trevor is here in the 80s, even though he died in 1918. Uh, they go over this because there's this artifact that grants these people's wishes, but at the same time, it kind of takes something away from them when they make said wish, and that's just something that plays along in the movie. But it's so it revolves so much around this or whatever. Like you kind of just almost forget what the main idea of it is, because they focus so much like on this stone. Where's the stone? Did the stone do this? I don't know. It's just like it's. I got tired of hearing about the stone at this point. So besides that, the third act, like the climax of the movie, it didn't work, man. Like it's just there's a lot in this movie that didn't work, as opposed to things that like I try to give it positives for, but for the most part, it was just like a lot of things that just were not working. The pacing, the exposition, the storytelling, the character motivations, even some of the acting was kind of, it just was not that great. That's about all I got to say about that. So now we're going to get into some spoiler territory. Now I am going to thoroughly warn anybody who is watching it at this current moment. Um, I'm going to spoil a few things, just some things that kind of bothered me, and I can't really. It's hard for me to not talk about these things without spoiling, so I have to say this. So, for anybody that's watching, if hopefully you've seen it already, but now we're getting into spoiler territory. So, there's been a lot of comparisons to Wonder Woman as Spider Man in this film for obvious reasons. That lasso is not for just making people tell the truth. Like that thing is like that is literally her. Just she's going everywhere with that thing, and to the point where it's like, look, I know it's supposed to be magic and all this stuff or whatever, but these are some ways I have not seen the lasso be used as long as I've been aware of Wonder Woman's existence as a character. Okay, so she was doing a lot with that lasso. And the only other thing is that it was just inconsistent. Like one of the things that was very inconsistent is the fact that okay, the stone gives people one wish that they can make, but it takes something away from them. Takes away from the character. Diana holds the thing and it essentially wishes for Steve Trevor to be alive again, obviously. But the downside to that is that it was taking away her powers. Now, that would make sense if they actually stayed consistent with that, because here's where things get a little bit tricky. Steve Trevor is back, but somehow he's like inside of like another random person's body instead of it just being him, because as the movie goes on, when these wishes are being granted, these things that are wished for materialize out of thin air. So I'm kind of confused as to why Steve Trevor could not have his own body. And for someone that was supposedly dead for almost 7 decades, he sure took being in the 80s very, very well. I mean, aside from being back from the dead, okay? It's little things like that where it's like they don't even address it. It's just like, how are you even in someone else's body? How does that even work? When all these other things that's just some things that was inconsistent. Now, with the powers thing, now there was a portion in the film where Diana was trying to rip this lock off of the garage, right? And we all know that she's super strong. Now she is struggling to get the lock off. And I'm just thinking like, okay. Now up to this point, they're not letting you know that there was a trick to having a wish. But uh later on in that movie, when they have to go to Saudi Arabia and stuff or whatever, when they go to like the action scene you see with her in the tanks, she's pushing an armored car at like 45 miles an hour with very little effort. But earlier in the movie, she's struggling with this lock. Now, I don't know why they couldn't just like say like, hey, maybe like it just went down as Like she was getting depowered as time was going along, but it was like, no, is it on? Is it off? Is it on? Is it on? Is it off? Is it off? It's like, make up your mind, movie, please. So between that and then Maxwell Lord's character, dude, like his whole thing was he was a failed oil tycoon, and apparently he swindled a lot of people out of money to try to get his business started. So he needed to get this stone that, of course, he just knows about the stone, and other than that, he's just this failed business tycoon who gets the stone, wishes to become the stone itself. Now, granted, for something that is supposed to mess up wishes, that could have gone a lot of ways, but so happened, for story's sake, he becomes the new wishing stone, a dream stone, and he can grant other people's wishes while taking something from them, and there goes, and air goes, everything starts going to hell as the movie goes on. So, between Barbara Minerva wishing to be like Diana, which she didn't know would give her powers, but at the same time, she started becoming more aggressive, and everybody is like completely infatuated her to the point of disturbing. So it's just it goes to a very weird place with this story, and it's so drawn out. Like even Diana's powers, like she's just doing stuff and they're not explaining how she's able to do this. It doesn't matter that we had like that we're missing 60 years. It's like, dude, don't just spring that on. Now all of a sudden Diana can make stuff invisible. What? Like it's like, okay, we know that you're a demigoddess, but okay, wait a minute. When did you get the power to make stuff invisible? Ergo, them stealing a jet to go somewhere and she making the jet invisible. And I'm like, invisible jet. Okay. But how, explain this ability though. Like just, man, it was just a lot of things that was just so inconsistent. And it was just like, besides that, what else? It was something else that really bothered me. Yeah, there's this part where Barbara becomes Cheetah, but it wasn't pronounced that she was transforming into an actual feral animal. Up to that point, she's been normal woman with superpowers. And there was a point where they said that like what she really wanted to be, because I guess like she started siding with Maxwell Lord, and he granted her another wish. And supposedly said wish turned her into that. But the scene that we see her before, she just like starts like like, you know, whatever. But we never see the change. When we see her again, she's full Cheetah. And it's just like, it was like, that was so anticlimactic. It just so anticlimactic. It was just like, it was like, wow, really? Really? It just led up to that, and then like the whole resolution with Maxwell Lord, like his whole goal is like now he wanted power and influence and supposedly make the world better. So somehow by broadcasting himself on television and telling everybody to wish for something, apparently that works. And just everybody in the world just started granting wishes, like Bruce Almighty style, right? And Diana is trying to stop them. Now, they never explain how she's able to hear these wishes at the same time. But she manages to get to Maxwell Lord where he was at. And she's having a hard time trying to get to him because it's like this whirlwind of power surrounding him because he's getting stronger, I guess. And just somehow she just managed to wrap the lasso around his leg without him noticing, even though she couldn't get close before. And Maxwell Lord is doing all this talking to all these people he's supposedly connected with. And at the same time, Diana is appeasing to everyone's humanity through Maxwell Lord because of the lasso. And I'm thinking, wait, how? Like, how? How is this a thing? How is this even a thing? Like, dude, she literally pulled a Mr. Satan at the end of Boo Saga. Like it's like she literally talked to the whole world to convince everybody to renounce their wishes. And everybody just renounced their wish. And that was the end of the thing. And I'm like, what kind of dude, I'm sorry, that was weak. That was so weak. It was weak. And not only that, before this, Diana like winds up renouncing her own wish because Steve basically so like, look, you know what you got to do in order for you to get your powers back. You got to let me go. And again, that story part of it wasn't bad. It was how it was done was man, but it was like after that she gets her powers back and she lassos herself all the way in the air as she gets her powers back, and then lassos uh, a major airliner's tail wing and launches herself further in the air. And then she discovers she can fly. She just flies now. And not only that, now she's lassoing the midair. Like there was literally a moment where she was lassoing midair, and then it was just like, again, even after that, she's lassoing. That's where we get to the part where she's lassoing on lightning bolts, and it's like, if you can fly, what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know. The movie was inconsistent. Her powers were inconsistent. They didn't really do a good job explaining a lot of things. I'm confused. I was dumbfounded by this film. I really, really was. So that's all I really got to say about this movie. I Neil, that's dude. Listen, if I'm just saying, look, depending on how you go into watching movies, this movie may bore you. This movie may bore you because there was a lot of exposition, a lot of unneeded exposition, because there's a lot of things they didn't need in this movie. And it was just, it was a bore, dude. Like, I got to the point where I was bored. Now, the only thing I will say as a highlight was the after credit scene where they feature Linda Carter. That was actually a pretty nice stinger. Um, it was a little on the nose, but other than that, I thought it was nice because I mean, hey, the world can use a little bit more Linda Carter. So, but other than that, that was just stuff that just bothered me, man. Like like this really didn't have the gravitas that I feel it should have had. It's just I don't know. I really don't know about this one. But with all that being said, guys, this is my score for Wonder Woman 84. It is a 5.5 out of 10 for me. I can see how some folks can get some enjoyment out of this film. I'm not knocking anybody that enjoyed it. I'm just saying for me, as somebody who liked the first movie for the most part, this was a letdown of a film. And don't even take my word for it. I have a friend who's a straight up DC fanboy. He didn't care for this movie. And you know who you are if you see this. But yeah, man, that's all I really got to say about this one, man. But that's all the time I got for this one. Guys, let me know what you all thought about this movie. If you're watching the replay and all of that, I enjoy interacting with y'all. It's been a while since I did one of these videos, but hey, that's the life of a new dad. So it is what it is. So guys, y'all can do me a favor by liking, subscribing, and all that wonderful stuff. And feel free to drop me a line and all that great stuff. And I will see you guys later. If you're watching this live, be sure to check back in about 2 hours or so. I am going to be on with the Culture Junkies at 8 Eastern. Yes, 8 Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. So check back with Culture Junkies. You can also check out back with me, and we'll be talking about some stuff, basically wrapping up 2020 for the most part and all that good stuff. So anyway, guys, appreciate you, Neil Green. Appreciate you, Walton Dunn. Sorry if I messed it up, but appreciate you. Thank you, Fred, for liking the stream. I appreciate that. So, guys, until my next video, keep following my advice to go nerd but nerd responsibly. This is your boy, The Fallen Marvel. I will see you guys later. Happy New Year. Take care and stay safe, y'all. Peace.